Okay, so what I've decided to do here is create a video that just explains how I'm setting up my Vue projects and to give you an idea of how you might want to set up your projects. And this is just based on stuff I've been learning, and also if you want to contribute obviously to some of the work that I'm doing, then this will give you an idea of where I start from, so you can start from the same place. So obviously we're going to be using Vue. So if you want to find out more about Vue, visit vue.js.org. And we're going to be using the Vue command line interface to build our projects with all like a whole bunch of structure already kind of built in, which is great. So the first thing you need to do is obviously install that command line interface. So on the Mac you can just launch terminal and you put in npm install -g at vue/CLI. Now sometimes I've had to put in sudo in front, sudo, so that super user do. Just sometimes when I'm updating it to the latest, it doesn't seem to always just like running in regular mode. So that's a little tip for you. Once that's installed, you can actually run then the Vue UI, which is how I'm going to be managing the project rather than doing it actually in the command line interface. So the Vue UI is like a beta thing that's new, that manages like lots of stuff that instead of typing into terminal, it does it through a nice graphical user interface. So you type in Vue UI, hit return, and that launches the graphical user interface, and it puts it onto this port here. So that's where it will be, and the project that you're running is actually on localhost 8080. Sometimes you'll find that it loads up and it's blank. So I don't know whether this is Firefox or whether it's because I've got the latest Vue CLI, but if that happens, don't worry. You just put in / and type dashboard, then it will get you to the right place, which is good. So this is where you want to be. And that's again just a little tip I found when you're using this. Like I said, it's still in beta, this user interface version. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the project manager, and what I want to do is I want to create a new project. So I'm going to create. And then I'm going to select where I want to create that project. Now I put all of my projects in a folder called GitKraken, because I'm going to use GitKraken as the client to help me manage this through Git as well. So what you do is you select your top level folder, and then you create a new project here. And in fact, I'll just keep this open so you can see that it's actually going to be doing stuff in the command line interface here. And the reason that I select this top level, go back, is that what you see here is that project folder is actually when you type in the name of the project. So I'm going to call mine simple Vue store, that it actually creates a folder and not just the name. So that's something to bear in mind. And then I leave the package manager as default, and here we put Initialize Git Repository because we want to do that at this point. So I say next. And then I'm going to go through some of the settings that are based on some good practice through the website Vue Mastery, which is a subscription sort of tutorial service. I'm going to show you the stuff they show you in some of the free videos that I found really useful. It's well worth checking out their website as well. So I select manual because I'm going to go through the settings and show you what they are rather than this preset I'd already made. So I select manual, I hit next, and then I want to make sure that Babel's on, that the router is on, that Vuex is on, and also the linter formatter is on, and that use config files is on. I haven't looked at this progressive web app yet, but that might be quite interesting. But that's something, again, you can turn some of these things on and off later. But for now, this is a great starting point. So you hit next, and then I want to select the linter as eslint plus prettier, which I'm going to show you how we set that up to work really, really well in our code editor. And we want to have lint.onsave turned on, and we hit create project. You can save this as a preset here, and we hit continue for now, because I'm not going to make it a preset, but you might want to. I'm going to say continue without saving. And you'll see down here that off it goes, and it's actually running the command line interface to install all these bits and pieces. It's pretty quick for a default project, which is great. Okay, so while that's off doing that, I'm just going to skip over to my GitLab, which is where we're going to manage the project through Git. So obviously Git is really great for managing, and I'm using my own installation of GitLab, which is gitlab.adamproctor.co.uk. You can obviously use GitHub and all those kind of things, etc. And what I've done is I've created a new project here in GitLab, and I've given it the same name as my Vue project, simple Vue store, and I didn't create a README or initialize this project. Okay, that's important because we're going to be doing that, obviously, well, we're doing that or done that through the Vue CLI. Okay, so I'm going to take this URL, so I'm going to clone it here, and again, this just seems to be the best way to work with your own GitLab and GitKraken. There's other ways, but it doesn't seem to work, so I found this is the best way. So you copy that link. Let's jump back to see what's happened. Yep, so the project's up, so we can see here that we're in that project, and we can look at all the settings, which is cool. And I'm going to just go to tasks for now, which is where we're going to be able to build and do things. Okay, so first thing you want to do is get Git working. So I go to GitKraken, which is my preferred Git client. And again, this means you don't need to use the command line interface, which is great. And I say open a project. And then what I do is I select open a repository, and I go into my GitKraken folder, and there's my simple Vue store. So I go into there, and I click open. And what you'll see here is I start to see the files that have all been changed, and I can see here this is my master, and it's a local master because I've got a little picture of a computer. I need to add a remote, so I click add to remote. So rather than going to here GitLab self-hosted, it just doesn't seem to find my repos for some reason. I go to URL, and I'm just going to paste in that URL that we got earlier, and do the same simple Vue store, just give it that name, and say add remote. And then what you'll see is that remote has been added, and now I'm just going to hit push, and it'll say where do I want to push it, and I say yeah, remote, submit. And you'll see now that that gets pushed successfully, and you've got these two are lined up together. Again, just really simple steps to get everything sort of synchronized and working together to begin with. Okay, now I'm going to jump to Visual Studio. So I use Visual Studio Code. I've actually got the Code Insiders, which gives you sort of the bleeding edge one. Same with a lot of these things. I'm trying to keep on the kind of cutting edge to make sure I'm up to date, which can have its problems, but so far it's been pretty good. And then I open folder, and I select inside the simple Vue store, and I select open. And then what you'll see now is a bunch of the files that are in that folder that I can now start looking at and making changes to. So there's a number of plugins, 3 I think it is actually, that you want to install to make, again, working with Vue much nicer. So you go to this extensions thing here, and the 3 that you want to install is one called eslint. So you can just search up here, you just type in the one you want to find, eslint, and then you can install it. Obviously mine's already installed. So you want to install eslint, you want to install Prettier code formatter, and you want to install one called Vetur, V-E-T-U-R. That again gives you some shortcuts to quickly create Vue components, that kind of stuff. So those 3, you don't need to worry about those. And then the other one you want to add, the 4th one, sorry, is Vue VSCode snippets by Sarah Drasner. So that gives you some extra snippet expansion, which is really good. And so we'll turn some of these other ones off just to use this. So once you've got those 4 extensions installed, we go back to our files. I need to make a few little changes to make them work the best. So the first one is to go to this eslint.rc.js file, and I want to add a line into here. So I'm going to copy that because it's easier. So I just add one bit into here, is this plugin :prettier/recommended. Just put in a comma. I'm going to save that, and you'll see now that it adds that line. So we've just added that one line, so that adds some extra thing to use the plugin Prettier as well. And then we want to add a new file into here, so I'm going to right click and say new file, and the file that I want to add has got a bit of a weird name, so let me just get this right. The file is called where is it? Oh yes, so it's called new file. Yeah, it's prettier. Oh, sorry, dot prettier rc dot js. Okay, so that's a JavaScript file, and into that we want to add this piece of information, which is module.exports equals, and the curly braces, single quote is true, semi is false. So that will basically format the stuff so that we have single quotes rather than double quotes, and removes any semicolons. So if we look at some of our stuff here, for example, you see here it's got these double quotes. It will sort all of that out to keep it simple with singles, and also if people were putting semicolons on the end, it will remove those for us, which is good. Okay, so let's just save both of those, make sure it's saved. Okay, that's done, and then we just need to change a few settings actually in VSCode. So if we go into Code Insider Settings, you've got obviously all the options here to change things manually through the graphical user interface, but it's probably easier at this stage to go into the code view for that, which is just the settings.json. So these are the settings that have been changed, and there's a couple you basically want to add in this piece of information here. The rest are things that I've just edited myself. So this, I'll paste the code in below, so you want to paste that in, and this is doing some of these fixes and also allowing us to use those code snippets that we've installed, and to use not the feature ones, but to use the other ones, which are better. Okay, so save that, and then what you'll find now is that if we go into, let's say this hello world one, let's just clear this out. I can now do things like I can type in vbase, hit return, and it will create the base template for any sort of Vue component, and then I can add in my hello world. I think they've got these capitals, yeah, like that. And then if I save, what you'll see then is that it saves it and makes some adjustments to the formatting, which is great. There you go. Why is it not going? That's weird. Okay, it doesn't matter. It's ignoring my double quote setting for some reason. Single quote true, yes, save. All right. Okay, let's close that. Close that. Close that. Okay, and then what you want to do to get everything up and running, you'll see in GitKraken it's noticing I've been fiddling around with files, is to check that it's still working. If I go back to Firefox, under tasks, if we go to serve, and I can hit run task, and that will actually build the app. And what you should see here is this spins round, and when it finishes you can click open app. Sometimes this dashboard here doesn't load and it says component failed to load. Again, I'm not quite sure why that is. If that's the case, don't worry. If you run the task and you just can't see this, which can be a pain, you can open the app obviously here with a shortcut. But if this is blank, wasn't loaded, what you can do is if you just type in to the URL localhost:8080, that's where the app actually is, and then you can see whether your app's working, which is great. Okay, the other thing I've got installed is the the Vue dev tools, so you want to install those, because that gives you, if I toggle the tools on in Firefox, these Vue tools, which are really useful and definitely needed. Don't probably use them enough. And if I go back to here, you can see that a bunch of things has been changed, and I can actually come into here and I can push those to my repo. So I can say getting started. I can stage all those changes, and I can commit those changes, and I can push that to the repo. And that is it. That's how you get up and running with a basic Vue project, and then you can kind of carry on. I hope that was useful and not too fast-paced.